Hi everybody, welcome to EduTap and also welcome to the ARD Simplified Series. And the topic that we have picked up today, it is the different climate change conventions that are there. We are going to talk about it, and we need to understand, see, a lot of current affair also that are related to climate change conventions. Those are asked in exam. But to understand those current affairs, we should understand the basics, right? So talking about, like, if we saw in previous year, directly from questions have not been come, but yes, a lot of questions like from current affairs. This is the topic from this chapter, ecology and climate change, which is a prominent chapter in your exam for your examination. But we are going to cover this particular section that is on the climate change conventions. It would help you understand current affairs better and also to provide better inputs in your descriptive answer writing. So we will understand from the basics definitions, then we will talk about UNCED that occurred, then after that conventions and protocols that are there, what is IPCC, and finally what are the national action plan. Means India has also made some plans for itself so that they can fulfill whatever international commitments that they have made or India has made, right? So we are going to talk about it, starting off with some definitions, because see, now we are going to understand what are protocols, conventions, treaties, right? So before moving ahead, let's just understand the definition and the differences so that we can understand the concepts better. Okay, starting off with the term treaty. So what is a treaty? So basically any agreement, international agreement that has happened between two parties, member of events. मान लो आपके दो लोग हैं, ठीक है? When I say people, I mean like nations or any parties, right? Definitely in nation a lot of people are there, or in any party a lot of members are there. But like whenever signing is done, it is by the representatives only, right? So that is why I'm saying that when two people are there, they have agreed on something. There is a paper where the rules and regulations have been written, right? So this agreement is known as treaty. Means two people or two nations, two parties, when they agree to something, that is known as treaty. Okay. Now treaty is not like that. Okay, for example, I went and my friend came and we just agreed on something. No, first there are some meetings that happen, and especially like we are talking about when nations, we are talking about parties. So definitely there has to be proper meetings that are held, right, where both the parties will share their concern, they will share what they expect, and it's not necessary that for all the expectations they would be met, right? Maybe I shared some expectations, but the other party is not ready to accept it 100%. So maybe 80% they will accept and 20% tweak they will do, right? So there are meetings that happen before, and those are known as convention. So what is a convention? A convention is something that happens prior to a treaty being formed. Treaty is the agreement, but before agreement some meetings are done. Those are known as treaty. Okay. A convention can also sometimes mean a treaty among a number of countries. अब जैसे क्या हुआ, like for example any two countries or like any parties, they have come together, they did a meeting, and on the same day they did the agreement. So in some cases convention and treaty might be used simultaneously in exchange of one another, these terminology. But if you broadly look at, there is a difference between treaty and convention. Treaty is ultimate agreement, while convention is meeting that happens prior to treaty where discussion is done. Okay. Up in treaty, when agreement is done, so it's not a formal agreement. Whenever any agreement happens between nations, between parties formally, it does not happen on the verbal basis that today I say this, now it is like now whatever word come out of my mouth I will do it. No, it does not happen, right? There has to be some documents that are signed, and those documents are legally bind, right? So those documents which are signed, that those are known as what? Those are known as protocol. So what is a protocol? It is a document that is legally binding, that allows alternation and amendments to the main treaty. And their amendments can be done. For example, today I and my friend, they agree, my friend and I, we agreed on something, but after like 5 months or 6 months we feel like there has to be some modification that needs to be done on the current agreement that has been signed. तो उसको amendments बोलते हैं. Those are known as amendments. ठीक है. So what is a treaty? A treaty is a international agreement between two parties or members. Before that meetings can happen. Those meetings are known as convention, where discussions are done. And finally in the treaty, protocol is signed. In the treaty there is a legally binding document that is signed, that is known as a protocol. ठीक है. तो ये आपको चीजें ध्यान रखनी है. I hope now you have clarity. Conventions are meetings, treaty is the agreement, and the documents, those are legally bind which are signed, those are known as protocols. ठीक है. अब to take care of the environment, because you know, when the scientist community, they started to observe this climate change, they started to highlight this, then all the countries, they not all the countries, but you can say the major countries, those were in power, they decided to form a united, you know, committee, so that focus can be done on climate change, right? And hence the Earth Summit, it came into action. It was a major United Nation conference, and it held where it held in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. Okay, so that was the first Earth Summit that has happened, where the talk on how to conserve Earth, the people, the stakeholders, they talk about the climate change, how that can be reduced or can come into control, so that the population, they can be protected, not only like the human population, but the other plants and other species, animal species, like all the animals that exist in the world, so that they can be protected. So Earth Summit in 1992, it was conducted. Then there was a follow-up meeting that happened after 10 years from 1992, so that was in 2002 में ये आपकी हुई थी, जोहान्सबर्ग, साउथ एशिया में, ठीक है। उसका एक और फॉलो अप हुआ, दैट वाज 20 years फ्रॉम द ओरिजिनल, इसको रियो प्लस 20 भी इसलिए बोलते हैं बिकॉज इट हैपेंड आफ्टर 20 years फ्रॉम द ओरिजिनल समिट, ठीक है। तो ये 3 बार इसके फॉलो अप मेजरली इसके हुए थे, जहाँ पे यू नो व्हाट आर द करंट सिचुएशन, प्रेजेंट सिनेरियोज दैट आर रिलेटेड टू द इनिशियल कॉन्फ्रेंस, उन सब में डिस्कशन होता है, ठीक है। अब व्हाट वर द डॉक्यूमेंट्स एंड कन्वेंशंस दैट वर साइंड एट रियो समिट, तो मेजर जो डॉक्यूमेंट साइन हुए थे, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल देयर वाज अ रियो डिक्लेरेशन ऑन एनवायरनमेंट एंड डेवलपमेंट, एजेंडा 21. Agenda 21 simply means for the 21st century, what these nations, like these stakeholders who have come together, who have the United Nations, who have conducted the conference, like what they envision, that what should be the agenda for the 21st century, ठीक है। तो इसलिए उसको एजेंडा 21st 21 है इसका नाम, एंड सम फॉरेस्ट प्रिंसिपल्स, राइट, like some rules and regulations were made so that not excessive deforestation can happen, ठीक है। इसके अलावा कुछ conventions they which were now open for signature was convention on biodiversity, United Nation framework convention on climate change, and to combat desertification, ठीक है। तो ये मेजर है, इनको हम देखेंगे। फर्स्ट इज योर कन्वेंशन ऑन बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटी, ठीक है। कौन कौन से कन्वेंशन ओपन हुए थे फॉर सिग्नेचर, मीन्स वी हैव अंडरस्टूड नाउ कन्वेंशंस आर व्हाट, दोज आर द मीटिंग्स, राइट। And open for signature means meeting will be held, discussion will be done, and then if any conclusion comes or feel like, you know, we have some agreement, then protocol will be legally binded, ठीक है। अब convention on biodiversity, first it was open to signature on Rio de Janeiro, means the first Earth Summit that happened in 1922, and what was the aim, or what was the main goal of the conventions, ठीक है। To protect the biological diversity or biodiversity, simple as that, इसमें बात कर रहे हैं हम sustainable use of components, whatever natural resource we have. अब it's not like that if any natural resource that is present in India, and some natural means which exist only in India, and for example there is some another natural resource that exists only in for example यूरोप, ठीक है। यूरोप में कोई एक स्पेसिफिक आप ले लो, मान लो, वैसे तो यूरोपियन यूनियन पूरा ही है, बट मान लो फॉर एग्जांपल लंदन मान लो, देर इज सम और थोड़ा नियर बाय चाइना में चले जाते हैं, ठीक है। सो इट शुड नॉट बी लाइक दैट द बायोडाइवर्सिटी विच आर प्रेजेंट इन चाइना ओनली दे कैन यूज इट, ओके, और द बायोडाइवर्सिटी दैट इज प्रेजेंट इन इंडिया ओनली वी कैन यूज इट, राइट। वी हैव टू गो फॉर सस्टेनेबल यूज, सो दैट every each and every country, they are benefited from the natural resource that exists in the world, even though it does not exist in their place, ठीक है। तो सस्टेनेबल यूज ऑफ कॉम्पोनेंट, ठीक है। फेयर एंड इक्विटेबल शेयर ऑफ बेनिफिट्स, ठीक है। तो इसके लिए 2 प्रोटोकॉल आए थे सामने, वन वाज कार्टेजेना प्रोटोकॉल, दैट वाज ओपन ऑन 2000 एंड इट गॉट इम्प्लीमेंटेड इन 2003, ठीक है। एंड सेकेंड वाज नागोया, जो 2010 में था और 2014 में इम्प्लीमेंट हुआ था। कार्टेजेना प्रोटोकॉल स्पेशली इट डेल्ट विद द genetically modified organisms, ठीक है। तो genetically modified organism, to get it transfer from one country to another, there are some protocols that were made, and those were under the Cartagena protocols, ठीक है। Means some you can say some measures will be taken, some security measures will be taken while transferring one GMO to another, okay, or things like that. All that come under Cartagena protocol. Second is your Nagoya protocol. It deals with this one, fair and equitable share of benefits. Like whatever benefit that exists in a country, they should not gatekeep it, they should not and over exploit it, which can harm the other organism that lives there, right? Each and every like these the biological diversity we have or genetic resources we have, those should be shared with the other country which is in need. Okay, so for that we have Nagoya protocol. So that was your first convention. Second is about your यूनाइटेड नेशन फ्रेमवर्क कन्वेंशन ऑन क्लाइमेट चेंज. ठीक है, तो ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या था? डेफिनेटली दैट वाज टू फोकस ऑन द ग्रीन हाउस गैस कंसेंट्रेशन दैट इज हैपनिंग. द एम ऑफ दिस कन्वेंशन was to stabilize this greenhouse gas concentration that is increasing in the atmosphere, and due to which reason? Due to the anthropogenic interference. Anthropogenic means human intervention. So because of this human intervention, what the greenhouse gas concentration is increasing, that is leading to climate change. The aim of this convention, UNFCCC or United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, it came into existence. Okay, and it came up with a lot of protocols that was there to bind the limits on greenhouse gases. We are going to look at it. Okay, what were the protocols? What were the important protocols? We are going to look at it. But before that, there was also one concept that was introduced under this particular convention. It was about common but differentiated responsibility. It meant what? That all the nations that have signed these conventions, those will have common responsibilities. That means they would have common objective only, right? For example, there is a developing nation, there is a developed nation. Okay, so both the countries' aim would be same. It just differentiated responsibility means, for example, if developed country has created more pollution, so they would be more accountable for the pollution that they have done, and they have to work more to redeem what they have caused. Okay, so what does it mean? Like for example, there was a developing country, there was a developed country. Both the countries, the aim would be to like for example, maybe not to release much carbon dioxide, or maybe to work in a sustainable manner, so that the environment is not polluted. So common aim is there, right? But differentiated responsibility means those who have caused more harm to the environment, they would have to work more. The ones which have caused lesser harm to the environment, they still have to do, but yes, lesser, because the impact that they have created on the environment, that was lesser. Okay, so as here explanation is also done. Common means what? That all must take part in fight climate change. However, differentiated responsibility means bigger polluter which are there, they would be held more accountable for causing climate change, and hence they would have to work more to redeem their effect, rather in comparison to the country which has done the lesser pollution. ठीक है, अब very important इसमें आता है आपका Kyoto protocol. So you have to keep in mind Kyoto protocol is related to your greenhouse gases. ठीक है, maybe in examination it can directly come like Kyoto protocol is related to, you should know it is related to greenhouse gases. ठीक है, as simple as that. Kyoto protocol, greenhouse gases. What is the aim? ठीक है, इसमें क्या क्या चीज़ है? लीगली बाइंडिंग है. ठीक है, ये सब चीज़ें तो है, लाइक बेसिक्स है, बट इसमें जो आपको ध्यान रखना है कि क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल में एज वी सेड कि ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस को लिमिट करना था, कंट्रोल करना था. सो व्हाट आर दीज गैसेस? कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, मीथेन, नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड, सल्फर, हेक्साफ्लोराइड, ग्रुप्स ऑफ हाइड्रोजन hydrofluorocarbons and group of perfluorocarbons. These are some of the gases where control had to be done under the Kyoto protocol, and whoever countries have signed this protocol, all were legally binding. Means if they would not function in these particular steps, then they would be they can be like legally convicted because they did not follow what was asked from them. ठीक है, तो क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल आपका किसके लिए? ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस का है. एंड व्हेन आई वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट लाइक प्रोटोकॉल, आई टोल्ड ना दैट इन फ्यूचर इट कैन बी अमेंडेड also when we looked at the definition, right? So in Kyoto protocol there were some amendments that were done in the second phase. So first commitment period was 2008 to 2012. Okay, then in 2013, then again a meeting was conducted, and then new changes were made as per the observation that happened in the previous commitment. Okay, so that amendment that happened in the new or the second commitment, that is known as your Doha Amendment. So Doha Amendment happened in the Kyoto Protocol, which is related to greenhouse gas. Again, okay, so if directly it is asked Doha Amendment is related to, it is related to greenhouse gas only, right? Kyoto Protocol is related to greenhouse gas, and in the second commitment, new amendments were made. Those amendments are known as Doha Amendment, simply because this meeting, this convention, it took place in Doha, which is in Qatar. Qatar is the name of a country, Doha is a place, वहाँ पे हुआ था, इसलिए इसको दोहा अमेंडमेंट बोलते हैं. ठीक है, तो इसमें क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ पार्टीज मींस, देखो अगेन सम कंट्रीज दे रिलीज मोर कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, राइट? So for them there were some other rules, for then other for other countries with less pollutant there were some other rules, इसलिए annex 1 to annex b ये सब डाला है. You don't have to memorize this, ठीक है? But major जो आपको याद रखना है, Kyoto Protocol is related to control the greenhouse gas emission, and there was a Doha amendment that happened in 2012, ठीक है? That is known as what? Yeah, that is known as Doha amendment. Amendment done in Kyoto Protocol that is related to the greenhouse gas. ठीक है, अब इसमें कुछ Kyoto mechanism है, let's understand that. ठीक है, अब जैसे for example if you live outside, means if you live in a hostel, or even if not that you get pocket money, or even if you don't get pocket money, you will understand. For example, I gave you 5,000 rupees and I said that you have to spend from this amount only in a particular month. Okay, now that is what the amount has been given to you. Now you have to survive in that amount only. Similarly, the concept of carbon credit exists. Okay, what is the concept of carbon credit? It simply means that for example, a country was assigned 100 units of carbon, means that in a particular year country A can only emit 100 units of carbon. If emits more than it, there can be legal actions. Why? Because Kyoto Protocol is legally binding, right? अब it can happen, देखो, even if I as a country I sincerely following the rules of Kyoto Protocol, but still it can happen that I am not able to like fulfill the targets, right? Because some things do take time, right? These are because when we talk about a whole country, it takes time to get the changes done, right? So what can happen? So in Kyoto Protocol there are some leverages also that are given, that in case if you are still exceeding the limit, there are ways by which you can redeem it. Okay, what are the ways? For example, 100 units were assigned to country A, but country A it emitted 110 units. Okay, so there are various ways by which it can redeem itself. One way can be, for example, there is country B. Okay, country B also had 100 units for them, country A also had 100 units for them. Up country B it emitted only 90 units. ठीक है, so अब if you look at it, country A it exceeded 10 units more, while country B still have that 10 units in buffer with it, right? So first case, country A can, what it can do, it can buy those 10 carbon credits for country from country B. That is known as your emission trading. In emission trading what happens, if for example, and it always happen between developed countries only, ठीक है? तो country, because in developing country there is a leverage that is given because they are still developing, so it can be that they are not able to control the carbon credit as much as they even if they want to, because there is still development that is taking place and that is also necessary. ठीक है, तो emission trading happens between country A and country B. ठीक है, तो if country A has emitted more units of carbon and B has emitted lesser, so A can directly buy those 10 carbon credits. ठीक है, and in this way that country A it can save itself. ठीक है, तो one case is this. Another case, that this country A and B, what they did, instead of buying and selling, the country A and B, they together form a team. So overall what they have, overall they have 200 units of carbon now. ठीक है, first case में they were individual countries, one have bought from another, but in second, like for example, now A then talked to B and A country said that okay, maybe this year you might have reduced less, what if next year you reduce more, what will happen in that case, right? So what A and B they decided to come together and club their carbon units, so that overall when they have to show the units to the UN. Okay, because this is a protocol that has been signed, right? So there will be some scrutiny that will be done. So they will show from overall 200. Okay, so overall from 200, if they are emitting 195, if they're emitting 197, that's up to them. Overall there should be 200. Then it would not be like country A has emitted how much or country B has emitted how much. Okay, in response to that, maybe country, if every year country A is only emitting much, maybe country B would ask it to, establish some technology in that particular country, or maybe they can ask for anything. That's up to them, whatever, however they want to deal with it. But the second is known as joint implementation, where country A and B have clubbed their carbon credit together, and they cumulatively show how much they have emitted to the respective whatever, like government body that is there. Okay, so that is your second case. In emission trading, buying and selling of carbon credit was happened, while in joint implementation both countries have clubbed their carbon units. ठीक है. अब third option है, that is your clean development mechanism. In case any advanced country has emitted above their given carbon credit, the another way by which they can save themselves is to establish any technology in a developing country B. Please keep in mind, joint implementation and emission trading happen between both the developed countries, but there's also one more way where advanced country A, it can establish either any technology in developing country B, which will which will help to reduce pollution in that particular country, because developing countries are still figuring out ways how they can do development, and that to sustainability. In fact, in most of the developing countries, they are not focusing on the sustainability part, because their major aim currently is to first have establishment of the technology and the the modernness. Okay, so in such cases, developed country A can come up with such projects which will add that sustainability into the current development. ठीक है, तो either they can do so, or if not technology, they can finance the country B maybe for any project or anything, so that again sustainability is done in that particular country. ठीक है, तो ये तीन आपके कुछ क्योटो मैकेनिज्म्स हैं. अब इसके अलावा देयर वर सम समिट्स दैट वुड हैपन. ठीक है, समिट्स अगेन आपकी मीटिंग्स थी जो कंडक्ट की गई थी. आई एम रियली सॉरी फॉर दैट. ओके, तो इसमें हमारा बहुत बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, एक है पेरिस समिट. ठीक है, यूनाइटेड नेशंस क्लाइमेट चेंज कॉन्फ्रेंस. देखो सीओपी अभी भी आपके चलते हैं, कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टीज बोलते हैं इनको. सीओपी इज योर कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टीज. इवन इफ यू लुक एट द न्यूज, देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ information on that, and in fact last year also COP 26 से क्वेश्चन आया था, COP 26 से कोई टारगेट सेट हुए थे in your ARD section only. तो that is why I said that maybe directly from this static question have not been asked, but to understand, like for example, if you have directly read the new COP 26, you might have gotten confused, right? So that is why I am saying that we are understanding the static so that you can understand current affair better. ठीक है, तो पेरिस समिट सबसे पहले हुआ था. ठीक है, जिसमें बात की थी अगेन लीगली बाइंडिंग एग्रीमेंट ऑन द क्लाइमेट चेंज. ठीक है, एग्रीमेंट क्या हुआ था? अब दिस पेरिस समिट इज रिलेटेड टू ग्लोबल टेम्परेचर राइज. ठीक है, योर क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल और दोहा अमेंडमेंट इज रिलेटेड टू कंट्रोलिंग ऑफ ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस. ठीक है, दैट जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट ग्रीन हाउस गैस. अब यू कैन interlink that, if gases are reduced, then temperature will be reduced. That's a separate thing. Okay, that's very separate thing. And these summits are in fact part of your climate change only, so in way you can you can interconnect them. But to have that segregation, your Kyoto protocol or Doha amendment, it was related to control the greenhouse gases emission into the atmosphere, and your Paris summit is related to overall focus on, because global temperature does not rise only because of the increase of greenhouse gas. For example, deforestation is happening because of also temperature also rises, right? So global temperature increase not just because of greenhouse gases but other factors also. So Paris summit, it talked about reducing overall global temperature, ठीक है, this century below 2 degrees Celsius, ठीक है, above the pre-industrial level. तो they have taken one particular time period and it was aimed कि आपको उससे 2 डिग्री बिलो में लाना है. ठीक है, और 1.5 डिग्री से आगे तो पहुंचने नहीं देना, वैसे ये एम था अचीव नहीं हो पाया, बट या दैट वाज द एम, ठीक है। इंडिया ने इसमें क्या फिर एम करा, दैट इंडिया विल रिड्यूस एमिशन इंटेंसिटी बाय 30 to 35% बाय 2030, ठीक है, ये उनका एम रहा है। प्रोड्यूस 40% ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी फ्रॉम नॉन फॉसिल फ्यूल बाय रिसोर्सेज ऑफ 30%, एंड आई थिंक दिस वन इज ऑलरेडी अचीव्ड, ठीक है। इवन वी हैव नॉट टच 2030, so that's a good thing, ठीक है। And also create additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2030. What is carbon sink? What is sink? Like even at home, like when you say na, that keep your utensils in the sink, or keep like wash your hands in the sink, right? So sink is that bowl where something is being collected, right? So when we talk about carbon sink, we are talking about such places where carbon can be trapped, it can be stored, right? So how carbon can be stored? By afforestation. A lot of trees are there, what they will do, they will absorb carbon dioxide, so they are collecting it, they are creating a sink, ठीक है। तो ये कार्बन सिंक का कंसेप्ट वो है बेसिकली, ठीक है। तो ये आपकी कुछ बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट आपकी पेरिस समिट मीटिंग थी, दैट वाज रिलेटेड टू ग्लोबल टेम्परेचर राइज, ठीक है। अब एक और कंसेप्ट है इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस का, ठीक है, दैट आई वांट टू टॉक अबाउट। सो बेसिकली दिस टॉक्स अबाउट टू ट्रैप द सोलर एनर्जी और टैप द सोलर एनर्जी। व्हाट डज इट मीन? और इसका कंसेप्ट ये है दैट सन नेवर सेट्स, ठीक है, to create a particular world where sun never sets. Now what does it mean? देखो, in the world there half part always have day, half part always have night, right? बट जो इक्वेटर में है आपकी, ठीक है, इक्वेटर में ये आपकी जो ट्रॉपिकल कंट्रीज है, ठीक है, यहाँ पे तो अब जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल आई एम जस्ट गिविंग अ बेसिक एग्जांपल, इफ 5 countries are in half hemisphere, first hemisphere, and 5 countries are second hemisphere, so 5 countries will have sun availability half of the day, and then for the rest half of the day the other 5 countries will have the ability, ठीक है। So the aim under this international solar alliance, which is a joint initiative that has been launched by India and France, so we should be proud of it, because we along with France are the countries that have, you know, rose this concept or proposed this concept, and now it has been internationally accepted. So the aim over here is to create such solar grids, to establish solar panels especially in the tropical areas. Tropical areas आपके क्या है, नियर बाय इक्वेटर के जो एरियाज है, नियर बाय इक्वेटर रेंज में जितनी कंट्रीज है, देयर बिकॉज अ लॉट ऑफ सनलाइट इज रिसीव्ड ओवर देयर, ठीक है, एंड इन अ वेरी गुड इंटेंसिटी। सो द एम इज टू establish these solar grids along those tropical area line, ठीक है, so that what happen, they are always recharged. How always recharged? Because for the first 12 hours these 5 countries will be taking up the sunlight, and the solar panels will recharge themselves. But then afterwards when sun will come this particular side, then these 5 countries will be taking up the sunlight energy and they will be recharging itself, hence creating energy, ठीक है। तो ये sun never sets का क्या मतलब है? Because now we have formed the grid, तो overall if you look at in this project, the sun is helping throughout the day, ठीक है, even if it is day or night in certain areas, ठीक है। तो aim to bring solar rich 121 tropical countries, ठीक है, fully और partially between like your tropical of Cancer और tropical of Capricorn के बीच में जितनी है उनको हम ट्रॉपिकल कंट्रीज बोलते हैं, ठीक है। सो दैट वी कैन यूज दिस रिन्यूएबल सोलर एनर्जी फॉर वेरियस पर्पस। और इसका हेडक्वार्टर कहाँ पे? आपका गुड़गांव में आपका बेस्ड है हेडक्वार्टर, ठीक है। नेक्स्ट वी हैव नाउ मॉन्ट्रियल प्रोटोकॉल। सो अभी तक मेजरली विच वी हैव सीन क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल एंड दोहा अमेंडमेंट, दैट वाज रिलेटेड टू द रिडक्शन ऑफ कार्बन ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस, आई एम सॉरी। देन पेरिस समिट वाज रिलेटेड टू रिड्यूस द ग्लोबल टेम्परेचर। नाउ वी हैव मॉन्ट्रियल प्रोटोकॉल। मॉन्ट्रियल प्रोटोकॉल इज टू प्रोटेक्ट द ओजोन लेयर, ठीक है। प्लीज link it, although I'm revising time and again so that you can actually memorize, right? But to protect ozone layer we have Montreal Protocol, ठीक है, came into force in 1989। तो एम से समझ गए, we have to protect ozone layer, ठीक है। ओजोन लेयर कहाँ पे प्रेजेंट होती है? आपकी स्ट्रेटोस्फेयर में होती है आपकी प्रेजेंट, ठीक है। तो एंड ओजोन लेयर प्रोटेक्ट अस फ्रॉम द अल्ट्रावायलेट रेज फ्रॉम सनलाइट, सो इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। इफ ओजोन लेयर इज नॉट देयर, कैंसर विल हैपन वेरी इजली, ठीक है, वेरी इजली इट विल हैपन। इनफैक्ट क्या होता है आपका, you know, those people who travel a lot from airplane, there are more chances of them having cancer because the plane it flew in the troposphere वाला region, right? So वहाँ से मतलब ऐसा होता है कि आपका काफ़ी ज़्यादा chances होते हैं, इसलिए usually it is recommended like even if you're flying you should keep the window shut so that like you're not directly taking up those rays, ठीक है. तो but all in all we are talking about ozone layer, ठीक है. तो ozone layer काफी ज़्यादा important है. And now what was happening because of these gases, those were just releasing into the atmosphere, it was observed that some of such gases are which are ozone depleting. So ODS is a ozone depleting substance. So this particular Montreal protocol, it came into action so as to reduce or to phase out production of such gases which are actually depleting oxygen, ठीक है. आई एम सॉरी, विच आर डिप्लीटिंग ओजोन, ठीक है. तो ओजोन डिप्लीटिंग सब्सटेंसेस जिसमें क्या आ जाता है आपका क्लोरोफ्लोरोकार्बन, हाइड्रोक्लोरोफ्लोरोकार्बन, कार्बन टेट्राक्लोराइड, हेलोन्स, ये कुछ आपके दीज वर सम ऑफ द these were some of the gases like these were some of the ozone depleting substances the which had to be phased out, ठीक है. अब इससे क्या हुआ, हाइड्रोफ्लोरोकार्बन्स टुक ओवर प्लेस अबव ओडीएस, ठीक है. पहले क्या हुआ, ओजोन डिप्लीटिंग सब्सटेंसेस थे, ठीक है. फिर उसके बाद क्या करा कि अदर ऑप्शंस लाए कि जैसे हाइड्रोफ्लोरोकार्बन आई एम सॉरी, नॉट हाइड्रोक्लोरोफ्लोरोकार्बन्स, हाइड्रोफ्लोरोकार्बन्स है दैट वुड लाइक रिप्लेस, बिकॉज सी these ODS or ozone depleting substances were used for some things, right? And now if those have to be phased out, now these ODS have to be replaced by something so that the smooth functioning can happen of the appliances that were used before. Usually आपके electronic appliances में use होते थे, ठीक है. So what happened, your hydrofluorocarbons, it replaced ODC, ठीक है, and acted as an alternative for chlorofluorocarbon and hydrochlorofluorocarbons, ठीक है. But later on what was observed that even though these hydrofluorocarbons, they are not ozone depleting but they are leading to greenhouse effect. So what happened in Montreal protocol, the aim was to phase out the substances which are used in various appliances but those are causing depletion of ozone layer, was to replace those ozone depleting substances. Now those were reduced by hydrofluorocarbons, but it was observed that even though now they are not directly impacting the ozone layer depletion, but hydrofluorocarbons are causing a great greenhouse effect. तो उसके लिए क्या किया, then what was done, so for that Kigali agreement came into action, ठीक है. फिर इसको टैकल करने के लिए कि किगाली एग्रीमेंट आया जिसमें now the aim was to phase out HFCs, because ऐसा ना होना कि ओजोन बचाने के चक्कर में you are increasing the alternative that they have come up with, it is more harmful, right? It should not be the case. तो किगाली एग्रीमेंट किससे रिलेटेड है, मॉन्ट्रियल प्रोटोकॉल से. किगाली एग्रीमेंट is to phase out hydrofluorocarbons. Montreal protocol was what, Montreal protocol was to protect the ozone layer. Then what else we have studied, Kyoto protocol, that is related to your reduction of emission of greenhouse gases. Paris summit, it is related to the decrease in temperature, ठीक है. तो किगाली एग्रीमेंट में then it was expected कि we have to now we have to phase out gradually HFCs also now, ठीक है. तो these some documents, some conventions that we have seen, ठीक है. तो ये दो हमने देख लिए. Lastly we have what, lastly we have combat desertification की भी है. So in this what is, that is to mitigate the effects of drought, मतलब सूखा ना पड़े, right? Because of like deforestation, excessive global warming, right? Places now they are getting dried up. So this particular convention, that is to combat this desertification, to come up with legally binding framework that would help to fight the problems. That is the basic aim, ठीक है. अब whatever conventions, protocols, those have been signed, right? There has to be some body that would that would check what are the progress that is happening, right? Whatever be the international treaties have been signed, there has to be a body, there has to be some group of people who would keep a check on that, who would keep an eye on that, or even if they don't control it but they are providing with the data that how much improvement is actually happening, right? So for that reason this independent panel was set up, इंटरनेशनल पैनल ऑन क्लाइमेट चेंज, ठीक है. तो ये इंटरनेशनल गवर्नमेंट बॉडी है जिसका काम क्या है, their work is to produce reports that support the UNFCCC. Means what does it do, it make reports of the countries, like whatever the conventions or protocols that have been signed or legally binded under the UNFCCC. This IPCC, international panel on climate change, it makes reports, it highlights like what country is in it, what progress, or maybe are they degrading or they are improving from before, right? To come up with these reports. तो main काम उसका ये है. IPCC reports cover all relevant information to understand the risk of human induced climate change, potential impact and potential on adaptation and mitigation. ठीक है, तो ये आपकी क्या करती है, नॉर्मल रिसर्च भी करती है, एंड देन यू नो इट रिव्यूज द वर्क दैट इज डन बाय द countries also. Lastly, अब इतने सारे protocols, there are so many protocols, so many conventions, so many agreements, right? So and so many summit that happen, COP still it happens, ठीक है, तो there has to be any national body also that would focus on this thing, so that whatever international agreements we have signed or like we have agreed upon, those can be met. तो उसके लिए India has established a national action plan on climate change. They have come up with this. It launched it in 2008, and this focus is to enhance the ecological sustainability on India's development path and to address the climate change which we have already signed at international level. तो उसके लिए there are major 8 like focus that has been made separately. Why separate groups have been made? So that more focus can be done. So one, we have national solar mission, so that is in sync with ISA, है ना. National mission on enhanced energy efficiency, sustainable habitat, water mission, national mission for sustaining the Himalayan ecosystem, right? All these are part of climate change. We have to focus on that. National mission for green India, sustainable agriculture, national mission for strategic knowledge on climate change. तो ये सब आपके national action plan on climate change के अंडर है. Government is focusing on, tries to focus on these things, right? So that is all in this video. I hope you like the video. For more such videos, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also join our Telegram channel to get the PDF of this and every lecture that we provide here on YouTube. Thank you everybody for watching again. All the very best for your exam. Thank you.